Hello everyone, it looks like we're live. I am running late. I think audio is set. We should be all good. I was like right before this live stream, I've been waiting to talk to a breeder for parrotlets. Some of you guys know I'm planning to get myself a cute little buddy. His name will be French Fry, and I found a breeder I want to go with that, well, there were two breeders. There was another breeder and then another breeder right now currently has babies. They're not ready to go yet, but I'm going to put a deposit on one of those. Super excited. So yeah, I'm late because of a very, very tiny shoulder chicken. Okay, so tonight we are going to be painting a lion. I'm going to walk you through this start to finish. Well, sort of. I've already painted the background of my canvas a dark color. I used black and that one is deep violet mixed together just to have a dark background. So whatever dark, you could go with solid black, you go with whatever color you want. But for the way that I'm going to do this, we are going to do this dark. Jason says, not chicken legs. No, his name is going to be French Fry. French Fry McNutt. Also, aka Officer McNutt. And there will be a story behind that I'll tell you guys about later. But anyway, so that is, tonight I am working on a Fredrix. This is a, let me show you what the label looks like. This is the Fredrix watercolor canvas board. That is the label that it looks like. It's an 8x10. You can see the back there. Thin canvas, very easy to frame. It's funny because these actually, I was reading in a forum recently, or no, it wasn't a forum because forums are actually useful. This was Facebook, it was not so useful. But a beginner group, and people were saying they didn't like the canvas boards because they're harder to frame. I'm like, what are you talking about? Those are the easiest things to frame. So all you do for a canvas board is you don't need a normal like open frame. You just take whatever cheap, this is a standard 8x10, so you would just take any frame, Target, Walmart, wherever you got a cheap frame, pop the glass out, put this in its place, done. Like it is the easiest thing to frame. So these ones are provided to me by Fredrix, just for transparency. I am sponsored by Fredrix, but they were already the only canvas that I used because I've had too many problems with crap canvases from like Blick. Hobby Lobby is one of the worst. Anyone who makes their generic store brand in-house canvas, they're crap. Warped stretcher bars like crazy, and stretcher bars that started that I made sure were not warped. When I bought them, they warped so bad within like a couple of years, and it made it so I can't really sell the painting unless I want to restretch it or frame it and send it that way. So it ends up costing me so much more money than just getting a good frame or a good canvas that I know is going to last. And so that was why I moved just straight to Fredrix. And my preference for Fredrix is either the ultra smooth blue label is wonderful because I like something that's really, really smooth. I love the Belgian linen, both acrylic and oil prime, depending on which I'm working in. And then these watercolor canvas boards are really, really smooth. So it's easy to get that really fine detail, smooth blending. So if you are working on a canvas and you're following along and it's really bumpy and really rough, it may be that your canvas just has too much tooth. It may have nothing to do with you using bad technique or just not, being newer at art. The canvas will make a difference. Now, one of the things you can do to kind of salvage a canvas that has too much tooth for what you're doing, and I do this on canvases all the time, like this painting here. This one, Fredrix doesn't make these anymore, but this was their old float canvas, and it's a wonderful, beautiful canvas. I love these because see how they're angled? When it hangs on the wall, it looks like it's floating in front of the wall. It just looks like it's floating in front. So it's really cool. But anyway, these canvases, I love the type because it's unique, but they've got a lot of tooth. Even though they're Fredrix, they're good. But for the techniques I need, I want it to be smoother. So I just put 2 to 3 coats of gesso, let them dry in between each coat. And then once it's completely dry, I take a fine somewhere in the 300 range grit sandpaper and just lightly go over it until it's a smooth surface. So if you do have a canvas that is too rough and you're having a hard time with getting that detail, you can get it to where it's at least smoother. That doesn't fix some of the other problems with cheap canvases, but that can fix if you've got a canvas that you like just want to use anyway, but you know it's too rough. Get gesso and sandpaper. That painting is going to be for sale on my website if it's not already. I need to get that up there. Okay, so let's see. Are their beds messed up?
Without
hold
treats.
on. That
These
isn't
puppies
right.
are so sad.
That is not doing what it's supposed to do. There are their beds. Yeah, the camera got moved this week. I'll have to readjust that, but it's good. You can kind of see Dragon back there. Dragon is in a mood. He is spicy tonight. He's in the tank behind the boys, running around, knocking all of the plants out. He's being a bit of a turd. He's having fun though, so whatever. Let's see. So there we go about the canvases. So just wanted to throw that out there. Like I'm using the rake brush. The rake brush will only work if you've got a smooth canvas. So if it's not working for you, it may be that. So I've started by drawing everything out, and you can draw in a sketchbook, you can trace it, whatever you want to go with, but I want to draw it on some other surface and then use transfer paper. So I've got the tracing paper, I trace it here, I stick transfer paper right under, and then I just trace over it with a stylus, just going over it, and that way I've got my clean lines. I don't have eraser marks all over the place. I don't like to draw directly on the canvas if I can avoid it, because it just makes a hot mess of eraser marks. So that is how I got that on there. Just tracing and transfer paper. So I'm going to move my tracing paper. Now I'm going to keep this. If you have traced something out, when you're painting, sometimes something goes terribly wrong and you realize, wow, it looks like the eye is in the wrong location. All I would have to do is hold this back over and see, did I paint it in the right location? Do I need to change it? I can redraw over it if I need to. This is kind of a cheat sheet that is going to help you, not to say that tracing is cheating, it is not, but this is going to help you to correct anything that may have gone wrong. So don't throw that out, hang on to that. Let's see, so here's my canvas again, nice and smooth. I've got deep violet and black. I did put a little bit of white, so I've got a teeny tiny bit of depth in there, and then he's all drawn out. I'm missing part of his ear apparently. Hold on, let me finish. Actually, I guess I may as well draw that out while I'm there. I can show you exactly how I use the transfer paper, because I'm missing a big chunk. I mean, I can freehand it, but it's a good opportunity to show you how that works. I usually try to get this on before the live streams just to save time. So that will be somewhere around like that. I don't need this exact. I don't care if it's perfect. It's an ear. The eye, that I would care about. What am I missing? The whole inside of the ear. So we just go right on over this. Guys, seriously, I'm so excited about French fry. Done. And these are just very sketchy marks. I'm not trying to make anything super perfect, super defined. I'm going to be painting over this. I just want a general idea of where that goes. And if I get a, oh, I missed a super chat. Hold on one second. If I get a message ready for the deposit from the breeder, because she needs, I was waiting for her to respond back. She's very busy and it takes a while to hear from her. But if I do that, I'm going to take a pause from the painting and take care of paying for French fry. And I need to scroll up because apparently I missed. From Kirsten, sent a super chat. Thank you so much. Oh, Gibson knows. He's already moving around. Whoops. Wrong camera. There we go. Did you hear that? One of these days, seriously, this week, one of my personal, like my chores, I need to get those vines and wrap them up. They're attached to a ladder. The original goal was always to drape them, and I never did, so now I've got a jungle going. You ready for a super chat? Come. Good boys. Can you see their cute faces? That's good boys. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Good boy. Oh, and yes, if you want to own this lion painting I'm going to be doing tonight, you can bid on it. The starting bid is $75, which is really cheap for an original painting. That includes shipping if you're within the US. The link is in the video description. That's it. Go lay down. Go lay down. Lay down. Or you can just go to Lachri.com and then the link is right there on my front page. Okay. Hold on. Making sure I'm not getting... Okay, thanks, Nick. Obviously, I'm not paying attention. I'm too excited about a parrotlet. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to intentionally leave some of this dark background. I want you to see, you can kind of see a little bit more of the violet in this color. The color is always more accurate a bit on this camera. But I'm going to let some of this background color show through. I don't want to hide all of those darks. Now the reason that I went with deep violet on this one, it's just, well, it's easy, I'm lazy. Deep violet, whenever I'm using like, oh, let's grab some paint while I'm talking. When I'm using colors like orangey tones, in this case I'll use some red oxide, I'll use some raw sienna, I'm going to use deep violet or purples for shading. And so choosing that for my background just kind of saved me a few steps there. I think that's probably all I need are these two colors. So the colors I've got, deep violet, black, titanium white, raw sienna, and red oxide. I've got blue on my palette just because of something else I was working on. Aline, if you're watching, the leopard is behind me. I started fixing the problems with that painting last week. I have an old painting, I don't know if you can see it back there. That one from 2012 12, 13. I don't know. There's a YouTube video, but there's not a Patreon lesson. I always loved the painting, but the shadows were so dark, and I never liked that. So I never like made it for sale. Oh, let's get this a little wet. But anyway, Aline really likes it, so I told her I'd finish it and see if she still liked it. It was one of those where I made, sorry for the sound, I made the shadows like black, and there's no world where black should have been a color used on that painting in the snow. Like it was just, I was too heavy-handed. You'll often hear me talk about airbrushing and a painting that I went like super black on the shadows, and that was a regret. That was one of the worst that I'd done that on. So I have to repaint where I did the black shadows on the Earth and Moon. What am I doing? Painting. Those are out. I need some white paint. Glitch is doing great, Jason. All the critters are. I've got new critters coming tomorrow. I ordered from Reef Cleaners, which is like my favorite place to get invertebrates for my reef tank. I've got some shrimp coming and some crabs and snails for the tank. I moved, you can't see, I'll show you later in the live stream. I moved behind where the boys are. One of my reef tanks is in this studio now, my quarantine reef tank. So yay. Okay, let's see. I've got to figure out a way to make it so you can see the rest of this room because it's really cool, but it doesn't show in the video. And we are good to go. So I'm just going to start by layering things in, and this is going to look really ugly at first. That's okay. Don't let it scare you. Let's simplify it. Let's just do everything in black and white to start with, and then we'll glaze the color over where we want. So I'm going to take some rake brushes, and what a rake brush is, this would be your normal filbert brush. This is a rake brush. So one brush stroke, I get a bunch of little brush strokes. And this is why having a smooth canvas is so important. If my canvas isn't smooth, rake brush does not work. Not the end of the world. What you can do if you don't have a rake brush, if you're following along, go ahead and paint this in with your normal filbert, and then you're just gonna come back through with a liner brush with the tiny lines in between, which I'm gonna do some of anyway. This is going to save me a bunch of time though. Now, I am not, due to time, I'm gonna spend about an hour and a half on this painting. At least that's the plan. I don't want to sit there doing a ton of tiny detail. I'm really going to be focusing more on my general lights and darks. So detail isn't really so much the focus as the lighting. Now this brush, I have too much paint on it, so it's coming out really chunky. I'm going to thin that with a bit of water. And it's very important that this brush be thinned with water. You can't just use thick chunky paint or you will not get those nice small lines. I usually dab that on my a paper towel. There we go. Now I'm getting some nice little lines in here. Now this is all going to look kind of crazy because I'm just doing it in white. And the reason that I'm doing that is why not make my life easier? I will glaze color over it once I get the fur kind of mapped out the direction I want it to go. Now notice this fur here, watch the direction it is. See how it's curved? Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they are painting lion fur, everyone does it, I know, is they will make one line and they'll go all the way down. One big brush stroke, long. The fur on the mane is not big, long horsetail strands. They're smaller. I mean, maybe a little longer depending on how dense the fur is, but it's just that there's a lot of it that it's a mane. It's not horsetail long flowing. It looks flowing, but you've got to watch the way that these are chunked together. So don't try to make one big long strand. It doesn't look right. And that's going to be the same thing. Let's say you're drawing people hair. Even then, even if they have long flowing manes, you still do shapes with the shadows. If you have any questions, leave those now. I'll be answering those at the end of the live stream. Or, well, at the end of the painting, I guess is a better way to word that. So we've got some longer fur over the ear, and then we've got little guys that kind of droop in. Nothing needs to be perfect. I just want to get this going in about the right direction. Looking at that reference photo, I'm going to spend a lot of time looking at that photo, just to make my life a little bit easier, just watching the direction that that fur is moving. So here's the ear. We've got the outer edge of the ear. That would be smooth, and then the fur comes in. See, is Jason making fun of the fact that I never understand what he's talking about? I just saw part of his comment. That's why I never get what he's talking about. I read part of it and go, huh? I'm just going to reload this. If this paint starts to dry on the brush, if there's not enough, it's not going to flow smoothly. So there's a few reasons that a rake brush may not work for you. One, your canvas isn't smooth enough. Next would be if you don't have enough water mixed in with the paint. Next is if you're pushing too hard. If I push too hard, it works more like a normal filbert, so just a heavy brush stroke. I don't want to push very hard with this. See how these are smaller chunks? They all group together to make a long mane, but it's not one flowing area. It's got to be chunks. And I'm going to put more detail on top of this, so don't worry about getting every strand. I want the main chunks though. Word of the day is chunk. I'm not reloading with water because there was a lot of water on the palette already. Let's see, when I get into the chin, watch the direction there. And this again, it's not start to finish, it's a bunch of little hairs. Watch how that's grouped. Leave the shadows of that background color in there. One of the things that beginners will do a lot is draw everything. They'll take a white canvas and a graphite pencil and they draw all this detail. They draw their whole everything on the white of the canvas. I don't like doing that. It's not that you can't make a cool painting that way, but you are certainly making your life a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So instead, what I would recommend, get your background painted first. Let's say you've got a cloudy sky in the background. Paint the cloudy sky first, then paint your subject over it. Now you're not trying to blend and get things smooth and messing up the subject that you just spent all that time drawing and painting. So you can see here, I've painted the background, but in addition to like the bonus of making your life easier, well, I guess this is also along those lines of making your life easier. I want, look, it's already, I've got shadows just from letting my background show through. I'm a huge fan of making my life easier wherever possible. The lazy gene is strong in me. So we've got little hairs in here for the head. Now these are going to be a bit more dense. Do more overlapping. I don't want it to look too scraggly. I'll do more shading, just kind of smudge that in. And I'm going to take a clean, let's see, this brush will work. This is just a clean, slightly damp brush. And I'm going to smudge some of that out because I want dense fur. I want it to look soft here. I don't want it to look scraggly. If I've got too many little lines, and this is another mistake I often see beginners make. They put so many little lines that it looks like zombie hair. It looks like something that has not been washed in weeks, and there's a lot of brain matter in it. And yeah, no, that's not cute. So we want to make that look soft and dense in here. We're just going to smudge that up. So we've got a little bit of the direction of the fur here, but then as I get in here, I'm just going to smudge that out. And this brush has just a tiny bit of water, just an old frayed damaged brush. And this is actually a good stage for that. So we've got from Oriole Beagle, said puppies. Gibson knows. Do you want a super chat? Okay, say thank you, Oriole Beagle. Oh, you never even met a beagle before, huh? We've got a French bulldog next door, though, that Gibson's obsessed with. Whoops, sorry, Wade. That was having a hard time with my fingers there. Good boy. Did you get it? Okay, go lay down. Go lay down. Go lay down. Lay down. Down. Rotten hounds. Down all the way. Good boys. Gibson, down. There you go. He moans. Am I putting you out? I'm so sorry. I know life is so hard. I can't make this any louder than it is. My speaker and everything is where it should be. So I'm sorry, therapy art for you. It should be fine. Oops, that is way too much water. So that would be, see how it's kind of running and globby and not cute? Let's just get rid of that. I'm just going to touch that brush to my canvas too, or not my canvas, I've got a paper towel under the easel just to dry that off. Again, watching the direction of the fur, it's a little bit longer there, so I'll still put that in there. Now, it doesn't have to be exact, but I want to go for close. Okay, I'm going to switch. Actually, no, we'll do a little bit more with the strands of fur. It'll get softened out a lot, though, when I start glazing over it. Now, one of the cool things, too, with, how many times have I said one of the cool things? But still, one of the cool things with these really smooth canvases is I can do what is essentially dry brushing, and it doesn't look like dry brushing. Now, if you've been used to following lessons and they're telling you how dry brushing is this modern marvel and, you know, do it on everything, stop following those lessons. Those teachers don't know what the, no swear words, Lisa, they don't know what they're doing. It's kind of like a tool painting crafty type thing, but if you want to be good at acrylic painting, you're not going to do a ton of dry brushing. Now, there is a time and a place for it. There's never any hard rule with art. Sometimes that is going to look good, but mostly it is not. Mostly we want to avoid that rough, dry, bumpy, ugly, I don't know how to paint look. One of the things that I often hear people say when it comes to acrylic paints, they think that oils are always better than acrylics. No, it's that most people get started with acrylics don't know how to paint with acrylics. And a lot of lessons, books, oh God, the books, so many books teach it, but they'll tell you to dry brush just because it's an easy way to get you to get a certain look. Yeah, but that look isn't necessarily good. So try to avoid that dry brush, that rough look. But the cool thing is if your canvas is super smooth, you can dry brush, so you get to use those super easy sloppy techniques, the beginner artist techniques, and it doesn't look like you dry brushed. It still looks pretty good. So seriously, get a smoother canvas. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're painting on, try super smooth. Throw a few coats of gesso on it, whatever you need to do. Another common question with acrylic painting is, do you need to gesso your canvas? Usually no. Most canvases come pre-primed, pre-gesso. Like if the canvas is straight white, no. If the canvas is a cream color, like a natural color, probably hasn't been gessoed, that's going to need something on it. But most, like I cannot remember, the only time I ever see unprimed canvases have been like rolls, where you're making your own, and it has been years since I even saw that. Like it is very unusual, at least here in the United States, to see unprimed canvases. But even if it already has a gesso on it, it's a good idea to, if it's too rough, you can throw a few coats on there and smooth that out. But it's not that it needs to. You can technically paint on it just as it is. Now here, I'm pushing a bit harder. I'm just kind of filling that in more solid just to get some light coloring in there. I'm going to smudge that a bit. I need to switch to a smaller brush now. Now, I'm talking a lot of crap about rough canvases. Being rough doesn't mean the canvas is bad. It's just not for the technique that I'm using. There are certain techniques where you want a rough canvas. Oil painting, I usually don't want the canvas quite as smooth as what I would want an acrylic canvas to be. Well, most people don't. I like smooth no matter what in most cases. But let's see, that is not what I'm looking for. I should pay attention. I need a smaller round. Maybe you'll work. Oh no, you will work. You are my new BFF brush. This is just a cheap, like no name. I don't think there's any name on this. Yeah, this is the most generic of all generic little round brushes. Just a tack-on bristled filbert, or tack-on bristled round. I was talking about something, I don't remember what it was now. Oh, the rough canvases. Certain techniques would require a rough canvas, and a smooth canvas is just not going to work. So I don't want to make it sound like all smooth canvases are always the way to go. It just depends on what you're doing. But for the techniques that I'm showing you here, the way that I paint when I'm doing realism, then I want smooth. Just smudge that a bit. I'm just looking at my photo. Where are my general lights and darks? That is what I'm focusing on right now. I'm just kind of softening it out. Don't over blend too. You can see when I smudge something, it's just a couple of brush strokes. Kind of filling that in, getting some texture. Now imagine everything that I just did if I was trying to mix the perfect color as I went along. Oh my gosh, that would have taken forever. Can it be done? Absolutely. But it's going to take forever. So I'm going to start working a little bit more on where my lights and darks are. I missed a whole section over here. Oh, somebody already bid on this guy. Someone knows the lion's going to come out good. Can I see the name? Sometimes I can tell who the name is. Oh, I know who that is. So let's work on a little bit more highlights in a few places before we start glazing. I'm just kind of lightly, see, this would almost be called what we would say is dry brushing, but it doesn't look like it because my canvas is so smooth. So after I go on my don't dry brush, it makes your work look like crap. Here I am technically dry brushing, but I can because this canvas doesn't look like I did sloppy techniques. Like an easy way to describe it, because people get offended when I say that, when I talk bad about dry brushing, because their teacher told them it was good and they've got faith in that teacher's terribleness. Oh, that's mean, but also not untrue. Speaking of terribleness, let's just smudge that back a little bit. If you go into, let's say, go to a gallery and look at somebody who's really good with acrylics, like I'm talking a gallery that sells for $5,000, $10,000. I'm not talking about a gallery who focuses on people who just started painting 2 weeks ago, which there are a lot of those. And they're fun. I like those, but there's a difference. If you go into a gallery that the artists are more experienced, you're not going to see, unless it's more of a textured, like they're trying to create a certain look, you're not getting that dry brush to get fluffy clouds. That's just not the look they're going for. With rare exceptions. There's always exceptions to everything. That is one of those red flags. Like if you're at a gallery and you see that, like usually the beginner galleries, you see that, you know that artist is fairly new. Unfortunately, too many teachers, and it drives me freaking crazy, teach dry brushing as this great end-all technique. That's fine for beginners to get you started, but don't keep doing it. Like, just don't have too much faith in that. Now notice this section here. We've got this little rounded kind of ovally type section on his muzzle. Notice that that is different, and really look at that photo. And this photo, by the way, you can download over at patreon.com/Lachri, or just go, the link to the direct post is in the video description. You do not have to be a member to get this photo. This photo, I think where did I find this one? Unsplash or Pixabay, one or the other, and then I edited the life out of it to turn it into what we're doing today. See how I'm really just, where are those general lights and darks? Let's see, that eye comes up here, and then we've got that, a lighter blob. just kind of, where are those lights? Where are those darks? I'm going to switch over to my liner brush, or not my liner brush, my rake brush, pull a few more highlights out, and then I'm going to start glazing this. And I will inevitably get somebody complaining, not usually those during the live stream. It's normally people who watch the replays. They want the reference photo on the screen. Go download the reference photo. You can put it anywhere on your screen you like, any size you like. Although, look, if I zoom in, I did do this for you guys because it fits perfect there. So sometimes when I get to the detail, I may pull that up for you. But if you're seriously following along, you need the actual reference photo downloaded. Because you cannot see enough of what I'm doing, or of that reference photo on the screen itself. Go download it. It's free. I used to load those onto my website, but my website started getting weird on how it had people save images. So now I'm just putting them over on Patreon if you wondered why they're over there. Okay, and then the individual strands I'll come back to later. Let's get a few little guys up here. Okay, we are ready to start glazing. Now are we though? No, we're not. That's a lie. And I'm okay with there being texture. I'm not trying to overly smooth everything out. I actually want there to be some texture in these brush strokes. That was a big one for me to get the hang of when I started painting. I tried to blend everything, so everything ended up looking like plastic. Don't try to blend everything. Let those brush strokes show. I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of this I'll go over with a liner brush in a bit. So I don't want to overdo that. That's probably good. Okay. I am going to take straight black paint and a liner brush right now just for around the eyes to make sure I don't lose where that is when I start glazing. Although I have my original line drawing, so I could just map that back in if I did. That's probably good. Okay, let's dry this. Now I can still see a lot of my sketchy lines underneath this from the transfer paper. That's fine, that'll get mostly covered. And if I spend even more time, I could cover it all. It doesn't matter if some show through with this. So I'm gonna start more with the raw sienna. It's kind of a goldeny brown color and a decent amount of water. Now there is glazing medium. Liquitex makes some, and I don't like glazing medium, no matter who makes it. It's too, I need more water in this. Actually, I'm gonna pull a little bit of deep violet too. It's too goopy. It makes the paint just dry weird. Use water. Water is wonderful. And actually, let's spray this to make it go a little smoother. My fine mist sprayer, link is in the description. I'm just gonna lightly mist that, and this is gonna keep those brush strokes flowing nice and smooth. And as I go over this, see how I go over the light and the dark? It just tints the color. Now, it looks a little bit lighter because the way the glare is hitting on your screen, it won't once it's dry. It's just because it's wet. Actually, on the screen it might, but in person it does not. And again, that's just a little bit of deep violet mixed with my raw sienna and some water. Do not mix white with that. If you're thinking, oh, but I want it to be a lighter color, so mix white. White is opaque. You mix white with that, and now you just created a foggy, not cute mess. If you're trying to create fog, that's the way to do it, like if you're doing a landscape that needs fog. But in this case, that is not what we want. Decent amount of water in there. You don't want so much water that it's running, but you need a decent amount to get it to flow smooth and be translucent, or somewhat translucent. I'm going over areas that are going to need, got some blue in there, get out of there, blue, that are going to need more white. That's fine. I'll put the white right over it. The link for the supplies that I'm using are in the video description. So, you know, help an artist out, click the links. Those are mostly, I think everything in there right tonight is are my Amazon affiliate links. So if you are an Amazon shopper, I got links for you. Go right over the eye too. We'll adjust that lighting later. And I'll show you, this looks a lot different from what I'm seeing than you, just because the way the lights are hitting this right now and lighting this up like the sun. Oh, information on my baby bird. Hold on. We want to know more information on French fry. I'm going to layer this in, and I'm going to read what she wrote and pay her her deposit if she gave me the amount. I'm not missing out on that baby bird. I love you guys, but we need French fry. Okay, and this is actually a good spot because I want that to dry. Actually, I want to put a little bit of that in by the mouth here and a little bit in there. Okay, let's show you what this is and then see if she's ready for my deposit. So you can see, there we go. The lighting is a lot different than what is showing on this camera. I thought about changing the camera because I'm always complaining about this camera washing everything out. The problem isn't just the camera, it's the lights. I need them to be light enough to see, but that also on certain things really washes it out. Let's see, about a month old. Okay, so I've got about a month before I get my baby bird because they have to be like 8 weeks old. 1 second. It's still. Okay. Also, guys, be careful who you send Zelle to or anything. Make sure you know who the person is. Her, I know who she is because of Facebook. Well, she lost her Facebook because you can't sell animals on Facebook, but Instagram and stuff. So, I mean, she's in my area, but seriously, the amount of stuff on like Craigslist and different things that is very shady, yeah, don't just send money to people. Be careful of that. I should talk more about oh, there are some scams, some artist scams going on right now. So we'll talk about that after the painting's done. Let me see if I can darken the lighting on this just a little bit more. Which one? Oops. There we go. And oops, that's actually the wrong button. Jason, I don't know why you're trying to rename the name that's already settled. His name is French Fry. Oh, wow, that actually instantly looked a lot better. Okay, we're just gonna save that because that is exactly like really close to what it looks like. Okay. Here we go. Yes, please hit the like button. If you are following along and watching, well, heck, I don't care if you're watching the replay. Please hit the like button. Leave comments. It helps. YouTube's like, oh, people like this. We should share it with more people. Okay, so I've got a decent amount of these darks in there now. I need to start pulling some lights. I don't think I need to go, I thought I was gonna put more red oxide. I probably will in a couple of spots, but not just yet. Let's start pulling some lights in there. I'm gonna actually start around the eye and work my way out now that I've got that in there. So there is where I'm gonna use some red oxide. I'm gonna take a round brush, bit of red oxide, bit of deep violet. Whenever you do an eye, If you want him to not look like he got into illicit substances, family friendly show here, can't say that. You always want to put a shadow on the upper section of the eye, and this is going to be the case for most animals with the exclusion of some reptiles and birds, depending on how the lighting hits. And I'm going to take a separate slightly, and I'm going to just smudge that down. Not worrying about the highlight on the eye yet. I just care that it's darker on top and fades to lighter on the bottom. Yes, Jason, but he's already named. I can't change it now. His name is French Fry. Oh, there we go. Oh, the next word after French fry would be onion ring. Actually, somebody suggested, was it you who suggested it, Nick? Somebody recently suggested that. It might have been my mom. Onion ring is being a really cute name. It is. We don't Jason is not allowed to name my animals. He comes up with some crazy stuff. Okay. What was I doing? The eye. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for a second. I'm going to come through with the black. I may need to get a bit of black. Actually, yeah, let's stop being lazy and put some new black out. This black paint was from this weekend, and I left it out without the lid for too long, so it started to dry. If I had closed up or put like a wet paper towel on my palette, it would have stayed wet longer, but I did not do those things. So let's grab some because that is chunky. Okay. Oh, much better. Again, this is going to look a little bit weird until we get the highlight on the eye. That's fine. And then we move into these brownish tones. So the way that I'm going to mix brown is my red oxide and black. If you've got like a Van Dyke brown or something like that, you can use that. I don't buy that anymore with my acrylics. I use Liquitex Basics, but the browns always dry into this goopy, like, it dries before I can use them because I just don't use them soon enough. But I get this beautiful chocolate brown just by mixing red oxide and black. I'm just going to go through anywhere where I know I want some of that darker brown, and I'll still have to go darker on some of this. I really like this. This is a Simply Simmons brush. I'm a huge fan of their acrylic brushes for acrylics. They're like, there's a nice firmness to them. I'm not super picky when it comes to acrylic brushes. When you get into watercolor and certain other, like, it's going to matter more. But for acrylics, I'm not. Most of what I use is pretty generic, pretty cheap. But these are, oops, I don't need black. These are actually really nice. And they're not terribly expensive. So I don't recommend going crazy spending a ton of money for your brushes when it comes to acrylics. For watercolor, sure. Acrylics, it's just not necessary. And in this economy, who can afford it to be wasting money on something that that isn't going to make a big difference in the art? A little bit more of a highlight on the bottom there. So here I want to start lightening some of this up. I'm just going to dab some of that in there, kind of soften that. And I'm going to really be focusing at this point on my, I'm going to actually mix some white. This is not glazing, by the way. I'm mixing white with my raw sienna. Get a nice cream color there. That looks yellow on the camera. It's not. It's like a cream. Where was I going to put this? Oh, a little bit more on the eye. There we go. And that's actually all I really needed that for. Do I spray the palette with the mist bottle to help keep the paint wet? Sometimes. Usually if I do it, it's to scrape off, to loosen things up so I can scrape it off easier. Not normally. I don't find that I really need to. that. Let's get a little bit around here. Start focusing on some of these. The paint usually stays wet long enough. The only thing that dries are these areas like here where I've mixed out, where it's all flat. But the chunks of paint generally stay wet just fine as they are. I mean, unless you're painting for like 20 hours straight, it is going to start to dry, but you're probably going through it fast enough that that's not an issue at that point. So I'm starting to define these hairs in here a little bit better. Do not paint the whiskers yet. You're going to be tempted because obviously it's going to look amazing when you get the whiskers in. Do not paint those yet. Those go last. Otherwise, you're trying to paint around them and you're making your life way more difficult than it needs to be. People who paint the whiskers in the early stages are probably the same people cutting their lawn with scissors. Like, that is just way harder than it needs to be. I'm just going to smudge that highlight out. Bit of smudging in there. If you are smudging like this and your canvas is rough, you are getting a dry brush look. Add some water, that'll help. Really focusing on the direction of the, oh, that's a little bit too much white. Oh, that works. The direction of the fur here. I'm going to soften some of that, put some of this and just kind of fuzz it. Now look how soft it looks. It took something that looked really frayed, zombie hair, and soften that out. If you paint this with me or you come back later and paint it, please post it on like Instagram or wherever and tag me in it. I would love to see your work. I get so excited when you guys share your work with me. Obviously, for the Patreon members, you can share in our Discord. Just picking out areas that need to be a bit brighter. Come through with a liner brush for even thinner fur in there. And here I need to get darker. Let's see, we've got a lot lighter over here. And so what's happening, I can still see what's underneath it. This is going to be a bit foggy, but it really lightens up and softens out that area. I'll glaze over it again. And I plan on this painting, if you're looking at the time going, oh my gosh, you've got to get this done, because usually I get it done in about an hour. This is going to be an hour and a half project. We want this guy to be good, especially since there appears to be a minor bidding war going. This guy's got to be really good. Not that I don't always want them good, but, you know, motivation. It's actually pressure. When I do these, and there's always a bit, like the earlier on bids, it's like, oh crap, pressure to make it really good when I know it's sold. You guys, whoever wins this knows you just paid for the deposit of French fry. So you get forever bragging rights that you paid for French fries deposit. Okay, so that one, see how this is rounded, and then it's kind of a highlight that comes out this way. It's not as defined, and then this curves out, so we're going to pull some highlights there. And let it be a little bit blotchy. Don't try to over smooth everything. Like, that is one thing that if I could go back and tell my younger self, it would be stop trying to over blend everything. Don't make everything look like plastic. Let some of those brush strokes show it looks better. It's like easy texture, easy detail. See in here, a lot of that, I'm just gonna let that brush stroke show. Does it look like fur? No, it looks like a brush stroke up close. But when you back up, you get so much texture in there. Think of it kind of like a faux finish. For those of you who are old like me and you remember the 90s, we faux finished the heck out of everything. Like I actually had people who would hire me to come in and do different faux finishes on their walls, because that's not tacky at all. Back then we liked it. Stop judging us. But, you know, we would do faux finish brick, faux finish spongy look. Sponge was popular. We would do all of these different textures on walls. And it was like up close, obviously it's not brick, but from a distance it looked like it. And that's really what we're doing here. This isn't hyper realism where up close it looks exactly like the photograph. But at a distance it should, but we need texture to make that happen, and that's what we're trying to create when we're doing something that is a little bit looser, the style that we're doing. Like I've got detail, but I've also only got, you know, another, what, 35 minutes, 36 minutes I can math, to get that detail. And that's something that I really like. If you are struggling with, like you want to loosen your style up a little bit, time yourself. Give yourself, okay, I've only got 20 minutes to paint. Like do it in a sketchbook. I wouldn't waste a bunch of canvases on that. But time yourself to do little projects where you've got limited time to get something done. It will force you to loosen up, because it's going to force you to start focusing on your lights and darks. That's what matters. And that's really what I'm doing here. I mean, I've got detail, but not as much as I might if I was spending 20 hours on this. Another thing, speaking of time, I want to throw out there, I paint as fast as I talk. That is just how my brain works. That doesn't, if you are falling behind, do not feel like you're not doing a good job or you're not as good of an artist. The speed that you paint has nothing to do with how good your work comes out. Take your time, pause the video, and catch up as you need to. That's one of the things I love about paint-alongs like this that are online, where you can pause the video and catch up. When I did these lessons in person, it was always hard because you would have that one student that was really slow and one student that was really fast, and then everyone in between, and no one was at the same place. So one student's waiting, like, come on. The other student that was slow is like, oh my gosh, I can't catch up in time. It's frustrating for everyone involved. Don't feel like you have to paint as fast as me. Just pause the video, paint at your own speed. This should be fun, not stressful. If you are stressing out, stop, go get yourself a cup of tea, whiskey, you know, whatever it is you need. See how I'm just keep building these lights, and I'll come back through with color again. I'm not gonna leave it this light. Oh, I am loving this guy. He's gonna be so good. Did I mention I am getting a little parrotlet? My excitement level is through the roof right now. So you guys have to hear about it. I got his cage all set up this weekend. I got a reef tank moved, which I need to show you guys in the studio to make room for the cage in my office. And I love the reef tank in the studio. It's so pretty. I definitely need to figure out a way to have that on the camera during the live streams. You might be able to hear the water running in the background. It's one of the small reefs, not my big one. The big one's still in the office. Now I would say the white in this camera is making it look a little bit overexposed. Let me show you what it's really looking like right now. So right now, that's going to give you a much more accurate, the angle's weird, but that gives you a more accurate look of where the lights and darks are. Of course, that's going to change once we start glazing, or glazing more. I'm just really, where are my lights? And don't invent highlights here. Where I'm putting the highlights determine the underlying bone and muscular structure. If I start just putting random highlights everywhere, which, let's be realistic, some of my older paintings, like 20 years ago, that's what I thought you did. Didn't look good, did not look realistic. It starts deforming the animal. It's the same thing if you're drawing a pet portrait. You've got highlights, don't just invent the highlights. I want to soften some of this up, so I'm going to throw a few little hairs in there. Okay, while that dries, I'm going to get a few highlights over here. Actually, I should switch over to the liner brush. Stop being lazy, Lisa. Grab a new brush. When you start painting, it's normal to feel like you need 20 brushes out every time you're working on a project. Normally, I've got like 3 or 4 max because I am lazy and you will get to the point. So this is something you have to look forward to. Not the lazy, that's like a genetic thing, I guess. But, well, not really. My family's not, I'm probably the laziest of my family. But anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, you will naturally get to where, and this is in every artist thing, the more you paint, you'll get to where you can use one brush and get the same results that you used to get with 15 brushes, just by how you hold it. And that just comes naturally. Like, you don't have to practice it. It just happens because you're naturally going to be like, oh, I don't want to grab another brush. I don't want to clean another brush. And you'll just start using the brush in your hand and being able to get it to do different things for you. So that, I think, is an exciting thing that you guys all, if you are newer, have to look forward to in your future. And if you've been painting for a while and it's not happening, paint more. Got some highlights up here. Make sure we form these into clumps, not just individual strands. See how I'm taking what's already there and pulling out highlights on that. It looks overly bright, again, because the way the lights are just turning this into the surface of the sun. So we've got the ear hair right along this. We've got a couple clumps with highlights I want to get. And I'll go back through with these same highlights. It'll feel like, why do you keep just reworking the same areas again and again? It's a layering process. This doesn't look good on layer 1 or layer 2. It starts looking good on layer like 15. Maybe not that many. Whoops, that's too big of brush strokes, actually. Oh no, that works. So see how I'm throwing that in there, and then this brush needs a little bit more water. Not too much, or it'll work like an eraser. Now, the brush that I'm smudging with needs to be slightly damp, but if it has too much water, it'll work like an eraser. So if that is happening to you, it's because there's too much water. Just lightly, see how just a couple brush strokes to blend that. Don't overdo that. Soften that out. When I first started painting, I was so determined that it was more of a, I just need to know what color to put on there. If I knew the right color, it'll look more realistic. I remember painting this one piece. It had it was a 24 by 36. My mom probably still has this somewhere. It was above an underwater scene. And in the background, I wanted everything. I had flamingo, I had a tiger and her cubs, I had underwater, I had fish and all kinds of different stuff, different birds, frogs. I had everything in this thing. And it looked like a terrible, not even a good cartoon. It was a bad cartoon. And like, the colors were pretty, I guess, which is kind of the excuse. Whenever someone says, oh, I like the colors, that's kind of, oh, you did a terrible job. This is the only compliment I can think. That's pretty much what I feel about my own work right now with, not this one, but that painting. And it was because I thought, well, for the tiger, I just don't know how to get the right color. And it wasn't an issue of the color. It was an issue of, I didn't have any, oops, what happened there? I didn't have lights and darks. I wasn't doing the real shading. It didn't matter how much detail I put in there. One, it was too much detail for something that far in the distance, so that was weird all around. I had no depth. But it also didn't have, it wasn't about the color. It needed my darks dark enough, my lights light enough. I didn't have that. Everything was very flat, very cartoony looking because I was so focused on, oh, just paint it the right color. Now, at the same time, I mean, that's how you learn to paint, by doing a bunch of stuff that doesn't look good. But so I'm not like mad at myself for doing it, but I had a complete misunderstanding and it held me back for a while because I was so sure that if I just knew the color, and I think that's something that every beginner goes through. They think if they just knew the right color. This isn't about the color. I don't even have the color here. It's about your lights and darks. Are your lights light enough, your darks dark enough? That is what's going to make your work look realistic, or in my case, back then, like a cartoon. I could paint this guy in all purples. I should do that one of these days just to prove to you guys, because I always talk about I could paint a tiger purple and it'll look realistic, just like a tiger under purple lights, as long as my values are correct. I think we are going to have to do that for a live stream one day. Or maybe just as a real one, because I'll make it look super realistic so I can take time. So maybe not as a live stream, maybe a Patreon lesson, but the point would still stand. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that very, very soon, actually, because it would be fun and educational. And I'm just looking at the photo, what needs to be a little lighter, what needs to be a bit darker. Okay, let's start pulling some more color in there. We're getting to the point where it'll start to look really good. Now I want to let that dry for a second. Well, it's dry, but I want to let it also cool. Actually, it's not completely dry. It's still a little bit sticky, so I can tell it's not completely dry. Let's do that. But I also want to let it cool a little bit, because if I put my paint on top of a hot canvas, it's going to dry too fast. Who said that? Jason said, so it's all about perspective. Prospective? It's not about prospective. But perspective, no. I mean, perspective matters. It's your values. Light's light enough, dark's dark enough. That's what it's about. The perspective isn't what I'm talking about here. My perspective actually in that piece wasn't terrible. I mean, other than I didn't have the depth because I had too much. The detail in the background was the same as the detail in the foreground, but the perspective was fine. Fine-ish. But yeah, no, no. And I think we're good. Oh, while we let this cool a little bit more, bring up, if you are not already, check out Patreon, patreon.com/Lachri. For as little as $6 a month, you get access to over 400 longer lessons. I just uploaded a 4-hour, very long lesson in digital painting. So even if you're like, I've never tried digital painting, I'm not into that. Do you have an iPad? Do you have a Samsung? I have a Samsung tablet, some S3. I don't know what my tablet is. I don't think that's what I have. I have a tablet S9. I don't know. I have some Samsung tablet. But if you have a tablet that has like a stylus, like any sort of little drawy pen guy, then that will work for that digital painting, and it walks you through how to do very easy, just simple. I keep it simple, the brushes that I use. Like, we focus mainly on one brush, one blender. That's our main focus there. And I'm going to show you how to make something look really realistic. That's a 4-hour long video that you can follow along with. I provide the reference photo, but even if that's not what you're interested in, most of my videos or most of my lessons are colored pencil and acrylic are the primary. I've also got oil painting. I've got watercolor. I've got, not a lot of watercolor. I'm just getting started with those lessons. I've got lots of Inktense, graphite, charcoal, tons of mediums over there for as little $6 a month, over 400 lessons, tons of stuff to keep you busy and help you to progress in your own art. So definitely check that out. Lachri. Nope, wrong one. Patreon.com/Lachri. We also have from Fly Me to the Moon. We've got a super chat. You're not sure? You think I'm tricking you? Do you want a super chat? Thank you, Fly Me to the Moon. Back up. You're too close to my tea, and you start drooling, and I don't want puppy drool on my iced tea. Oh, tasty. That was a little bit chompy, sir. He's like, I was afraid you were going to drop it again. It's your own fault. Oh my gosh, your drool. See, this is why I got washable carpets. That's a lot of drool. Good boys, go lay down. Thank you, Fly Me to the Moon. Lay down. Okay, so back to this guy. Let me show you again where we're at color-wise now that I've got that in. So we're towards the end, but we need to start correcting color now. But really, look at the, where are we? Look at the chunks. These are the chunks that I keep talking about in the fur. It's not one long, flowy strand going down. This is not Fabio. Even Fabio wouldn't do it that way. Oh, I just aged myself, didn't I? Okay, is he still alive? What was I doing? Colors. I'm going to use some raw sienna with a little bit of red oxide. I'm just using a Tecla bristled filbert and water. Actually, this brush is way too wet. I don't know why there's that much water over there. Actually, I'm going to rinse that since I mixed it. Heart of Raven D said, oh God, I know who Fabio is. Does that make me old? Yes, it does. You are just like me. Okay. So I'm going to start pulling this into the darker areas. I'm also going to start pulling some deep violet into some of these areas here. Let's pull some of that now. I'm going to mix some red oxide with this. Yes, please hit the like button. I love you for that. I'm going to pull a little bit of that deep violet in here as well. And I'm not trying to make this purple purple. It won't look purple to the viewer who sees this. You guys know I'm using some violet, but that's not the color, like, that's not really what it looks like when it all comes together. Oh, he is still alive. Nice. Jason says, is that like Elvis? Yes, Jason, that's exactly who it is. That was funny. I'm laughing in my head. Is that like Elvis? I'm just gonna soften that out. I'm using a mop brush just because that's so wet. The mop brush will actually lift some of that because I've got a little bit too much water. It'll kind of sop up some of that. I'm gonna pull some of the darks in here, and then I'll pull whites back over where I want highlights. I'm going to use the mop brush again because that still has too much water, and this will help sop some of it up. Some of it up. How many little, like, we're just going to make that lots of syllables. God, I can't talk. So we've got some darks in here. I'm going to do the same thing because I've got a lot of water on that. I'm just using that mop brush. Now, here's the thing with the mop brush. This doesn't work when you blend a wet area into a dry area like I'm doing, except I've got too much water. So that's the only reason it's actually working for me. So this is one of those do as I say, not as I do. I just happen to have a lot more water than I need in my mixture. And so I'm using this to kind of sop it up so it doesn't run. Oh my gosh, I love this guy. I'm super happy with how he's coming out. Okay, I'm going to pull more red oxide and a little bit of deep violet into the ear, right in there. And now I'm going to, same thing, deep violet and a bit of red oxide. Thinning that with a bit of water. Taking a separate brush to smudge that a bit. And I'm starting to hit these deeper values. This is where we're really pulling that richness of some of this color out. Now, here's the thing. This color, not at all exactly like my reference photo. The reference photo has more yellows. Mine has more of that deep violet. Yeah, that makes sense because my background I made deep violet and the original reference photo was not a lion in the dark. So I've got to make those adjustments since I changed my background. And it doesn't need to be the same color anyway. I just need to watch that my darks are dark enough, my lights are light enough. And if anything, I would like my darks to be a little bit darker and my lights a little bit lighter than the reference photo. I don't want boring, muted, kind of in the mid-range, nothing's too dark, nothing's too light. That feels safe, but it's also boring and not as pretty as if you can hype that up a bit. This I've got to make pretty dark so that I can pull the lights back over it. Okay, we're just about ready to start pulling a few more highlights on. Let's get a little bit more deep violet. Pull a little bit of black in there too. Make sure this is nice and dark so that those lights stand out really nicely. Gibson's over there moaning. I don't know why, but it's funny. Yeah, you. He's still moaning. What are you doing, weirdo? And he still has long hair. Wow, that is... I'm going to have to look that up. I mean, if you were Fabio, let me know if you disagree, but I would think you would just always have to have long hair. Like, that's your thing. How do you, like, that would just be so depressing to cut when that's what you were known for. Let's make this a little bit darker back behind the ear. Again, this is, the black is not straight black. I'm mixing some of that deep violet in there that gives it a lot more of a richness. All right, Vin D said, what if he's a vampire? That would make sense, actually. He would have been a good vampire. Darker here. I'll have to pull some lights a little bit more under the nose. Let's pull. Just watching where the darks need to be. And I'm not trying to make some perfect color, just a mixture of black and deep violet. I'm just getting some of these darks a little bit more contrast in here. It's not like I care if it's too purple, too black. None of that really matters that much. As long as it's dark enough, that's what I'm looking for. Technically, I was dry brushing right there, but it doesn't look like it because that canvas is super smooth. Okay, let's pull a bit more highlighting, and we're just about done with this guy. And throw my brush on the floor because I couldn't decide if I wanted to wash that off right now. I do. I should have brought more paper towels. Oh, I do have more paper towels. Yay. I just don't have them in a convenient location. So all I do to rinse these is tip just the very tips of the brush in water because that's really all that should ever have paint on it. The mop brushes, we don't use these to paint. And there are people who make videos who are like dipping that in there and painting the brush. They're making a hot mess and wasting a lot of paint. And I don't know what economy they live in, but no one can afford that right now. This brush is, even if I could afford it, I wouldn't do it. It's actually kind of stupid and wastes time and paint. That makes your life, that is not a fun brush to clean if you get too much paint on there. This is for softening things out. I want it dry and clean, and I'm just lightly going over things to soften things out. When you want to apply paint, use a brush like a normal paintbrush because it doesn't hold as much. These are too poofy. They hold too much paint, but not in a convenient way. Like, it's not making your life easier. It's sloppy, it's messy, it's just, it's not, don't do it. I mean, you can, but you and I don't live in the same economy if you do. Okay, highlights. Actually, let's dry this and then highlights. a lot of these highlights with some unbleached titanium white. Well, I can mix my own. I could stop being lazy and just, I'm going to be lazy. I haven't used unbleached titanium white in a while. I think I just unplugged myself. I could technically mix it by throwing a bit of raw sienna in with the white, maybe a little bit of black, tone it down some, but the lazy is strong in me. So let's get a few more highlights, a few more strands. I'm going to do the same thing, thin that down with water. I'm just going to pull a few highlights. Now the unbleached titanium white, the reason I'm using this and not white is the white, well, it's too cool. This is going to give me a warmer look. There's a few areas I may want white, but this is going to give me, it's just not going to be as, it'll be more subtle. I'm not trying to make this too crazy. The white for the base was fine because I glazed over it. It didn't stay white. This gives me a much nicer warm tone. Again, if you don't have unbleached titanium white, just following that curve there, the highlight down there, you can mix your own. In this case, I would use a bit of raw sienna, maybe a touch of black or a touch of deep violet, just something to make it kind of a cream color. If I'm mixing my own, I just use whatever colors I'm using already in the painting. We almost get to do the whiskers, which makes everything look amazing. So you have just a few little strands here and there. Don't want to overdo this. Definitely lighten some of this up a bit more. You can do this with, you don't have to use a rake brush for this. You could use a normal Taklon bristled filbert. It's probably a little bit easier to control. I'm just getting a little bit of texture in there, not too crazy. This one's a little bit longer right in there. Need to reload that brush, getting too dry there. I'm turning this brush sideways to get these longer brush strokes for some of these wisps. And this is why I needed to get this that much darker so that these guys could show up on top of it. I'm going to pull a little bit more white in here. We need to put the highlight on the eye. Stick my finger in that because it was a little bit too bold right there. these last little things that I want to stand out a bit more. And I'm just sticking my finger in it and it tones it down so it's not so fluffy looking. Like I want texture, but not that much texture. And I'd like, again, this to be a little bit darker than my reference photo in here just because my background is so much darker than the original reference photo was. The reference photo you're seeing is the one where I changed the background, but I want this guy to be a little bit darker. Okay, let's go ahead and do the whiskers and see where we're at. Let me show you again on the other computer or the other monitor because, or camera, whatever, because again, it's a lot different than what you're seeing on the other one. The other one washes it out a lot more, so we're getting more. There we go. Oh, I like him. Okay. Whiskers. So I'm going to use my liner brush and white. Thin that with a lot of water. So we also, actually, let's get the highlight in his eye first. What a difference that makes. If you do not feel comfortable just freehanding those in there like this, take a white charcoal pencil. General's white charcoal pencil are the ones that I use, and you can draw them in first. That way you can erase it if it goes terribly wrong. Got some little guys that overlap this way. Pull some wisps out this way. And then he'd have some little eyelashes up here. I'm going to switch over to some black. Define a couple of spots in here. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes for final little things that I think would make it look better. So it's too much water and a little bit too defined. Where's the brush I was using? There it is. Let's soften that out. Way too much water. So I need to just touch that on my paper towel that I've got on my easel. So, you know how I said no dry brushing? Well, again, it's kind of what I'm going to do here. Well, sort of. Because this canvas is so smooth, it won't look like it. And so when I need this kind of velvety looking fur, I can just put a little bit in here, smudge that out. Okay, it's not totally dry brushing, but I could, and it won't look like it. Technically, this would be dry brushing, and it doesn't really look like it because that canvas is so smooth. One of the things I often hear from people is like that they think that acrylics are supposed to look like you dry brush, like it's supposed to look different than oils. Well, if you want it to look like oils, why don't you just use oils? That is the stupidest argument I've ever heard, and I hear it every so often, and it's like, think that through. I don't care what medium I use. It shouldn't change what my artwork looks like to that extent. That's kind of a silly, so I should be able to be, I'll use that as an excuse to not learn how to use my medium because it's easier to do in another medium. Like, what? Or I could just use the medium, learn how to use it, and make it look good. I'm always amazed, though, just in general, the excuses people will make not to be good at something, no matter what it is. It could be anything, not even art related. It's like, it's still just an excuse. You could be awesome, but you want to make excuses instead. It's weird too, because that argument about, well, you should just use oils if you want it to look like oils then. Like, I've heard that so many times, and it's always from terrible artists. Every time. I've never heard someone who was skilled at all or like put the effort into being good at what they did who made that excuse. You don't have to be mad that other people put in more work than you. Just again, pulling out some of these highlights, making them stand out a little bit more. Okay. I'm going to pull a little bit more white, like white, and we are done. And I'm going to throw my brush on the floor, because why not? And I'll show you on the other screen what this looks like. I just want a few more like white. I needed those darker ones in there first so that the white would show up like that. I'm going to soften it a little bit though. The ends are a little bit too harsh. I'm going to highlight parts of the whisker, just where the light is catching, not all of it. See, I'm just kind of hitting parts. So it looks like the light is catching parts of those. I think he is done. Do I want any more highlights? No, but I want to tone a little bit more in one area really quick. And I reserve the right, if I look at this with fresh eyes, in an hour, I get to come back and make a few little adjustments. Oh no, this absolutely was needed. I needed some more of this golden tone in here. So we're just going to pull a little bit more raw sienna and do a couple of spots. Oh yeah, that is making a huge difference that you probably can't see very well. Oh, that looks terrible on the computer screen. I'll show you in just a second on the other one. The lighting is just not like it actually, it's not that off, but kind of. Oh my gosh, I love this guy. Oh, and this is making such a difference, just glazing a little bit. Okay, oh, and I need to sign him. Okay. So I will use my unbleached titanium white. Let's get a little bit of deep violet in there. Should we get a little bit, kind of a dark. That'll work. And I don't think that shows on this. Hold on. Oh, so the mess that's under my easel, there we go. So I'm going to sign him here. That doesn't show up, I'm going to switch to black. I was going to sign it over here, but changed my mind partway through. So now we're going to go over to black. Needs a little bit more water on there. we go. That doesn't even look like 2024. Kind of it does. Oddly enough, that looks like it stands out more on the video than it does in person. Let me dry that, and I'll show you another screen, and then I'll go through your questions. Okay. So here is the finished lion. So God, that looks so much better under the lighting over here. What a difference. Oh my gosh, I love how he came out. Is he not gorgeous? Pretty, I was gonna say pretty puppy, but whatever. Okay, so he is done. Congratulations to whoever is currently bidding on him. And let's go. Oh, Patty sent a super chat. She said, the boys are being so good, they need a reward. Do you hear that? Gibson looked over. He's like, I thought I heard the word super chat. Do you want a super chat? Come on. You got to get up, Gibson. Oh, I know. Life is so hard. I made you get out of your bed. Come on. Oh, you're over here. Thank you so much, Patty. The boys thank you, too. Oh, that's tasty. Let me text Matt and tell him he can turn off Tuna's music because it's kind of loud and he's trying to watch TV. Okay, so let's go through questions. You two go lay down, lay down, lay down, down, down. Good boys. Look how good those puppies are. Okay, so let's go through your questions. Jason said the boys don't jump up like they used to. Yeah. Sometimes they do. Usually, I don't know, maybe because they're older. Okay, let's see. Emma said, you ever work in series? How do you go about planning a series, or why don't you? I'm thinking I want to try working that way, but I'm not sure the best process. I don't now. I'm going to be a little bit different because I teach and because every painting I do has to, it's going to be for Patreon. If I do too much of one thing, I lose patrons, I lose members, and I can't pay my bills. So I have to try to constantly paint something that's going to make I'm constantly changing mediums, which that part I do enjoy, but I'm having to constantly change what I'm doing because if I do too many fish, like I would like to do a whole, but I'd probably paint ocean stuff all the time if I could, or surreal stuff all the time. I have too many members who are not interested in that and they make sure I know. So, and I say that like I'm being snotty. I'm actually glad they let me know because I would rather know so I can make sure I'm keeping them happy too so they don't leave because again, I really enjoy paying my bills. So yeah, I have to make sure I'm changing up what I'm doing. I can't really just keep doing the same, like something in a series would be a bit much. So for me, I don't. Would I otherwise? I have in the past. I've done like a set of 2 or 3 paintings that kind of went together, but never more than that, just because I lose interest. So I mean, it would be like mini series if I did that, but that would be my thing on why I wouldn't. But I've heard people talk about that it's good for your career. I don't think it matters. You paint what you're passionate about. That's what's going to make a difference because what you're passionate about, what you're excited about, that is what's going to show in your work and the viewer is going to recognize that. If you're painting a bunch of stuff you're not interested in, and I make it sound like I'm not interested in painting things like because I'm doing stuff for Patreon. No, I'm interested in I love wildlife. So it's not like I'm unhappy about painting wildlife instead of a surreal thing that week. But painting what you're passionate about is going to really show in your work. So I think that that's a big deal there. If painting a series is something you're excited about, go for it. If you're not excited about, I wouldn't waste your time. I don't think it makes a big difference one way or another in your career. I think what ends up happening is what you are drawn to almost comes out looking like a series. So we often talk about style, finding your style as an artist. And we kind of get worked up on, oh, I don't know what my style is. I haven't figured it out. The more you paint, your style just comes through naturally. You don't have to sit there and go, this is my style. You don't have to define it. It's naturally going to happen on its own, just the more that you paint and draw. So with a series, it's almost like you can look, I mean, with me, I don't paint in a series, but I look around the room and I'm like, it looks like it kind of goes in a series. I mean, behind me, you can't see it, but way behind me, I've got 2 paintings. I just spit because I'm a classy lady. Nice, Lisa. I've got 2 paintings up there that have fireflies in them. It wasn't a series. It's just something that I like to paint. And so it's a theme that will repeat through my paintings and almost feel like it could be a series, but it's not. It's just things you like will naturally start to repeat themselves in your artwork, and this is kind of what will start defining your style. I look up here and I've got these darker paintings with the same teal, dark, almost like aqua green colors and owls. 2 different paintings up there with owls. That same aqua color is in a painting over in between the 2 with the fireflies. Again, you can't see it, I know, that has a chickadee. So you have, I should probably put in for sale on my website. I just realized I have people who are fans of chickadees, and I should probably make that available for someone because it's an awesome painting. But anyway, it'll look like, it could feel like it's part of a series. Any one of these paintings, I could claim they're all a part of the same series because my style and the things that I'm drawn to, the things that I like are themes that will typically repeat themselves through a bunch of paintings. So it almost feels like a series, even though technically it's not. I think that going out and saying, I want a series of, like, okay, this one, which I'll come back to. We'll use this as an example. So this painting I did, the whale swimming, it's a phone case. You can buy these. But the whale swimming above the road. I kind of want to do a few more roads with animals involved like this, something surreal like this. Would I call it be doing it as a series? No, because I'm not really doing it all in a row, but they're all a theme that I like that you're probably going to see me do a few times over. I have certain, I'm trying to think of certain, what did I do? Goldfish. There's a goldfish. I painted like 4 different paintings. The same reference photo because I like it. Was it part of a series? No, it's just a common theme you're going to see in my work because it's something that I like, but I could group them together kind of and claim it was a series, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I don't think that it necessarily, I don't know if I really answered your question, but I don't think that it's something that's going to like make or break your career one way or another. If you've got an idea and you're excited about it, do it. But I don't think you need to force yourself to either. I don't think it's going to like make a big difference. Emma said, are you doing another critique soon? I can if you guys want me to, although I did 3 in a row. So I'm going to give it a bit of a break, but yeah, I definitely will. Jason said, I missed the live stream. So how was your time at Aquashella? I don't know if I don't remember. Did I talk about it much? So Aquashella kind of changed. I like it, but it feels more like just a normal trade show. It doesn't feel like, originally Aquashella used to be this big festival. Like they had a DJ going and music through the whole thing. You had a lot of YouTubers there. Like they had a thing they called it Fish Tube, but then YouTube went after them like, you can't use the word tube in your thing, but they could have called it something else. But they're not bringing in the YouTubers. They bring in some of them, but they didn't, like the original ones. There was a booth, like a section where all the YouTubers hung out. And so you could go over there and meet them. Now the YouTubers there just kind of wander around the show. It's not the same. Like they didn't have the same people like this. Well, we can use me as an example. They normally have me paint the badges and they just used AI art this time. I'm free. Well, I'm not free. They paid me. Well, they paid me in exchange for my booth, but used AI art, whoever was in charge of that section, which is fine. I mean, it was less work for me, but at the same time, like it kind of shows you there were certain corners that they kind of rushed through. They didn't have the aqua crib, which was this big, I don't even know what you'd call it, this tunnel you'd go through that was really cool. They didn't have a lot of stuff. And I get I'm assuming with the economy, they're having to cut corners. They're going to have to save money. So I understand some of that, but some of this stuff, like me, I'm free. Like you already paid for me, have me do this stuff. They normally have me do a demonstration. They didn't this time. Like they did, there was a lot of stuff that they didn't include this time. It felt like there were a lot of vendors who were just big advertisers that weren't selling stuff. Like for example, I was all excited when I saw Hikari was there and I needed some food for my new beta I bought. So I got a new beta. So that part's awesome. But they didn't have, when I went to the booth, they were like, oh no, this is just for display. Wait, you took a main booth on the main aisle. So I could have been on a main aisle, but I can't because it's specific people because they pay more for those, which I get. I'm just trading mine for the artwork. But you could have had something that people were interested in. Instead, all it was a booth that was an advertisement. They weren't even selling the product. And I'm like, this is... That was disappointing for me, I guess, and that was me as a buyer because I'm like, I wanted to buy stuff and there wasn't much to buy. I bought a beta, I bought some plants for my freshwater tank, and I bought for the beta tank, and I bought one mushroom coral, technically more in the anemone family than a coral, but whatever. I bought one mushroom, and that was it. And normally I do shopping like there just wasn't the booths that I normally liked weren't there this time, and that's not Aquashella's fault. It was just the vendors weren't there. So that kind of, you know, whatever. So that was yeah, that was kind of my experience. But I mean, it was good. I'm not going to do it again next year, or at least I'm not planning to, because it wasn't worth my time. I don't make enough at these booths because I mean, I make money, but I don't make enough to make it worth the work that goes into setting up, sitting there all day. And I was so drained. I had to take a week off work I canceled my live stream the next week because I was so drained. I've got too many health issues. I think it's just too much for me with not enough reward. Like if I was making a ton of money, and some artists do, like I'm not saying that you can't make a ton of money at those things. I'm not set up in a way, I don't do enough of these shows that I can't invest the money needed to make a lot of money at these. So my prints are just, I do G-clays, they're too expensive for most buyers. So that is kind of that's a whole thing. But yeah, so it was fun, but also I don't think it's not for me. I would rather I want to go to it, but not set up a booth, if that makes sense. So yeah, I want to go shop, and that's about it. We have from Pauline, she said, I had to leave for a minute to give my cat a treat. So here's one for the pups. You hear that, boys? Oh, they know. You want a super chat? Come on. You get a super chat. Wade knew. Gibson, I'm not bringing it to you. Come. If you want one, you got to get up. See, they're just lazy. Greyhounds are the laziest dogs. What do they call them? 45-mile-per-hour couch potatoes? Yup, that is them, huh? Them is some lazy boys. Okay. Go boys. Go lay down. Say thank you, Pauline. Go lay down. Bad Cow has been the best cow today. I don't know what happened, but he is just like, I'm the bestest boy. Like ringing the door regularly to go out and potty. Like, I mean, he is ringing that bell. He's been so good. Weird. Go lay down. It actually makes me concerned. I'm like, are you ill? Lay down. Lay down. Okay. I'll show you the tank in a minute too. Lay down. Both of you. Down. I just said what good boys you were, and you're now just completely ignoring me. Gibson. He's like, but a plant touched my butt. I can't lay down. Okay. Let's see. Art of Raven D said, I gesso the canvas I use due to the rough texture for the liking. But if I'm doing some painterly painting, I'm not gessoing. Yeah, like if I'm using heavy brush strokes, then I want a little bit more tooth in my canvas. If I'm going to do something more impressionistic, actually, I still like that to be smooth too, but sometimes I like more tooth too, so yeah. And thank you again, Pauline. The boys appreciate you. Fly Me to the Moon said, what is a grisaille? What is grisaille exactly? You're doing an underpainting in like a two-tone. So like you could do a sepia or a raw umber where it's just that two-tone and then you can glaze over it, but it's just two-toned. So it's like what I did here, it was just essentially an underpainting on that lion, and then I glazed the color on top of that. I don't know the actual definition, but that's essentially it. Mama Bear Artist said, could keeping acrylic paint open on a wet palette for an extended period of time damage the paint binders? I had a Matisse Artist quality paints only use water as a thinner. No, it shouldn't. It doesn't affect the binder. Like, the videos you'd hear where they're worried about the binder and using too much water, so I'm thinking that's probably where you're getting this information. There is a video that goes on and on about the binders with acrylic paint. She's got millions of views on this video. It's like a 10-year-old video, and it is made up information. It is made up information that's been spread for a very long time, so it's kind of an old wives' tale. I'm not saying she made it up. I'm saying she didn't do her research. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She at all, which apparently is the case for her. That video is a scare tactic type, telling people that this old wives' tale that is not true, has never been true, is a thing with water, that water ruins the binders. No, it does not. You can mix up to, it's like 90 to 95% water if you're using a quality acrylic paint, you can mix like 90 to 95% water before it starts degrading, like being an issue. No one's going to use 90 to 95% water. That's like less than watercolor. It's not ever going to really, like, it's not an issue. It's a non-issue. that was a video that got really popular because of the scare tactic thing on YouTube. And so whenever I see these videos that they're worried about the binders because of the water, it's all BS. It is, and it's either that the artist knows and they don't care and they know they're going to get views for it. If I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt, if I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt, I'm not giving me the benefit of the talking with the right words in the right order. But some of them are just spreading old wives' tales. They're just incorrect and they didn't bother to research before. I cannot talk tonight. They didn't bother to research before they made a video. And then, but see, and this is why I don't give that lady, if we're talking about the same lady, and I'm sure we are, I don't give her the benefit of the doubt. God, my words are just not coming out the right way. I don't give her the benefit of the doubt because people told her in the comments, hey, you're wrong. Here's reasons. She turned off comments. So she turned off comments so she could keep making their ad revenue on a video that is false information. So that's why with her, I'm like, she's just a liar. I'm sorry. That's lying. I can't do anything but assume she's lying because people told her and she didn't care and she just turned off the comments. So yeah, that video is just, yeah, the molecules and the beehive molecules in this honeycomb structure of blah, blah. Look, I can make up stuff too. So yeah, that video. Anyway, to answer your question, no, there is nothing wrong with keeping your acrylic paint on a wet palette. However, I don't personally like it because I do feel that the paint gets kind of goopy and weird, and that is 100% a personal preference. It doesn't hurt the paint. I just don't like the texture it makes, the way that it kind of soaks up. Oh, my shoulders, my backs, all the things, my backs, multiples. Let's see. Emma said, Lisa, do you have a favorite and least favorite art medium? Ooh, favorite's probably acrylics. Huge fan of colored pencils, obviously. I love Inktense. Least favorite, so I don't know, I can make that whole list. Least favorite's gonna be pastels. Now I love pan pastels, but regular pastels, and I'm a little bit bitter about it because I love how pastels look. Pastel pencils, love them. Like Jason Morgan, oh my God, look at his work. Oh, they're wonderful. It gives me heebie-jeebies. I can't work with them. It touches my hand and you can say, well, just wear gloves. I can't stand wearing gloves. I hate wearing gloves. So, I mean, even in the winter when my hands are cold, luckily it's Texas, it doesn't get that cold. I hate gloves. But when things touch between my feet, and now everyone knows I'm insane. But pastels, the dryness, I can't do it. And it sucks. And I'm bitter because they're so pretty. And when I was young, they didn't bother me. But as I got older and I didn't use them for a long period of time, when I went back and tried to use them again, oh my, like skin crawling heebie-jeebies freaks me the F up, like out, up, whatever, both work. So yeah. Okay. You guys are still bidding on the lion. Do you want to see him again? You know, being that you're bidding, just so you know what you're bidding on. Oh, look at Fabio's hair. It's very fancy. Thank you guys for bidding. And whoever wins just paid for French fries deposit. And you forever get to claim that. Okay. John said, when I've glazed over my white brush strokes and black shadows and background, it seems like it messed it up. Do you always go back with black or do I need more water? I'd have to see it to know what you're talking about for sure. So reasons that can go wrong. Yes, if your paint is too opaque. So if I glaze over it, no white ever. There is no white in unless you're using a transparent mixing white, then yeah. But there's no white mixed in with it because that's going to be opaque. When we glaze, we want to use colors that are more translucent. If I used like the Liquitex Basics, yellow ochre, way too opaque. So that's not going to work great as a glaze. Even my raw sienna is a little bit more on the opaque side, so I have to use a little bit more water with it. But when I do glaze, yeah, it's going to muddy up. The black is not going to be as dark. So that's why you saw towards the end of this, I went back through with the black mixed with my deep violet and pulled my darks in even further to really make that more rich. I just kind of work back and forth like that. So I'm guessing that's probably what's happening there. But yeah, more water for sure. If you can't see all the brush strokes you did, then yeah, more water. If it's too opaque, more water. But some paints are just really opaque, like Liquitex Basics, they're yellow ochre. Or I think they call it yellow oxide. So I might be calling it the wrong thing. It's the same thing. But at least it looks the same. I don't know. Like as far as the ingredients go, I don't know if the pigment's the same. But there we go. Do I still use the Strathmore colored pencil paper? Fun. That's a fun story. Once. and I will never use it again, except to show people how terrible it is. No, Strathmore's colored pencil paper was one of the worst inventions. It's one of the worst papers you can use for colored pencil. Like, I would rather use cold pressed watercolor paper than that crap. And that says something for colored pencil, because I'm not going to use cold press either. But Strathmore's colored pencil paper is terrible. It is not good for colored pencil. I used it once in a review. So if you go and look up Lachri Strathmore colored pencil paper review, that video will come up. I did a tiger. And I talk about in that video more why I didn't like it. It can't handle, so I airbrush the background, and people are like, well, it shouldn't, you know, it's not for airbrush. Every paper should be able to handle airbrushing. It warped like you would not believe, like to the point where I could not sell that piece. I actually gave it to my father-in-law, but he didn't care that it was warped. But it was warped. So that's a strike against me. But I won't bash the paper too hard for that. That's a little bit of an issue, but okay. So moving on to actually layering the colors. It was too smooth. It didn't have enough tooth for the pencil. And then when I blended with OMS, it buckled again. I have never had a paper buckle like that from OMS and then dry out of shape. That paper is crap. Strathmore should have worked with colored, like actual professional colored pencil artists to develop something good. Instead, they were like, hey, colored pencil right now, because when they invented it, or like came out with it, colored pencils were getting really, really popular. Like, hey, let's just market it with that and people will buy it. Yeah, and they did, and it's terrible. It is horrible. Like, I would never recommend that paper for any, like the only thing I would use it for now is graphite. It'd probably be okay for graphite, but still would not be my first choice. Terrible. Eagle, who used to be Python, said, I'm 99% oil painter. I rarely use acrylics because I don't really like them as much. I prefer oils because I take way too long, and they work better for me anyways. They are also cheaper in the long run. Yeah, oh yeah, oils go a long way too. That you are right there. I am a huge fan of oils. I like how oils smell. Oils? Oils. There's an L in there, not a W. I cannot talk. Eagle, also Python, said, as a classical style oil painter, I still don't understand the belittling of acrylics. If you use them right, you get good results. You're right saying they can't, saying they can't is a horrible excuse. Yeah, I don't understand. I think people think that acrylics are supposed to be easy, and they follow these lessons, and I bash teachers on YouTube, but the reality is this started from books. I mean, back in the 2000s, before YouTube, early 2000s, before YouTube was a thing, when I was teaching my classes, students would regularly ask me, are there books you could recommend? Because they're all excited. They want to go paint at home during the week when they're not with me. There weren't any at the art. I was teaching out of Michael's at the time, and then Hobby Lobby. There were no books that were carried. I couldn't find anything that I could recommend them that was carried in the store, because they're all like, use this dry brushing technique. And it's like, that's the opposite of what I want to teach someone. I want to teach them to be good with acrylics, and that is not, I mean, no, just no. So, I mean, this dry brushing thing has been around, you know, people have been teaching it for years because it's sloppy and it's lazy and it's easy. And the funny thing is, you can dry brush with oils and it doesn't look like dry brushing because they stay wet, so it actually blends smooth. Dry brushing with acrylics looks bumpy and rough on a normal textured canvas. Again, the watercolor canvas board, I can get away with it, but like a rougher canvas, it's not cute. It's, yeah. But I think a lot of people get into acrylics thinking, oh, because they're easier, it's acrylics. And it's like, heck no, oils are way easier. So that's what I don't understand, this attitude about acrylics. It's like, if somebody masters acrylics, that takes far more work than mastering oils. It's just a fact. That doesn't mean one's better than the other, but the idea that acrylics are somehow lesser, I think the reason is very few artists master acrylics. I mean, they're out there, but not compared to some of the other mediums. So maybe that's it. I don't know. These are just random theories. Mama Bear Artist said, let's see. Why would my paints suddenly not stick to the canvas after being open on my Stay Wet palette? Now that I don't know. That I might blame the canvas. Well, it depends on the canvas. Did oil or something get on there? Now, it can be the acrylics. Some acrylics I've had problems with. So there were some, who made them? Revis was one that was really bad. There was another one too, like these beginner, Revis, who was the other one? I can't think of it right off the top. Deller and Rowney. I'm not saying that right. I haven't said anything else right tonight, so that makes sense. But I never say that one right. With the Deller, whatever, those ones, I would have students lay that on there, and it didn't matter if we used water, didn't use water. It did not matter. We would dry it completely. They would put another layer and like if they did any scumbling or any techniques where they're like kind of scrubbing the brush, it would lift off the previous layers. So it may just be as simple as the paints you're using are crappy. It happens. I've seen it happen. Liquitex Basics are going to be on your cheaper end, but they're still high quality. So that is what I definitely recommend. Yeah, that's all I can think of on that one. Art of Raven D said, name the lion Fabio. I'm one step ahead of you. I already did. Although maybe one step behind because you probably mentioned that way before I did. Let's see. Audrey said, when selling art, what do you sell the most? Landscape, still life, etc. Lately surreal stuff, which is funny. And I think it's because, well, not always. It depends. It just depends on who I got it in front of. Did the the person who was going to be interested in it get in front of them? Like if I do something surreal, you can only get that surreal painting from me. There's not going to be another one that looks that much like it. If I paint an owl, there's 100 artists that painted the same owl it all looks about the same. So I think for me, surreal stuff is usually what I sell more of. Yeah, but yeah, mostly surreal stuff. Sometimes the wildlife stuff, but yeah, I would say the surreal stuff sells more for me. Speaking of surreal stuff, so let's talk a little bit about these phone cases. This one is through, I told you guys I've used Teespring, or they call it themselves Spring now. The link is in the video description for this. You can get these for Samsung or iPhones. They have these. This printed so good, and I did the one I've currently got on my phone is the one with the artist definition. It says artist, noun, a magical creature that turns caffeine into masterpieces, and it's got my, my magnolias there. This one, the reason that I'm not using this one, I actually think this is the prettiest, the way that printed. Now, the reason that I love, love, love Teespring and why I sell with them versus other places for merch is, I mean, posters are Fine Art America. Can you see there's a chip here and there's a chip here? This arrived damaged. I know when something goes wrong with them, they have the best customer service. I contacted them. They're so nice. I sent them photos of the damage. They're sending me a replacement. Like, no, they are so nice about it too. Like and I've had a few times now because I order from them a lot. I've had a few things, whether it be this or like the sweatshirt, the ink wasn't on there all the way and I washed and the ink came off. They replace it. They're so good about it. And then I had a free sweatshirt that I wear around the house because I don't care if it gets messed up, it's already messed up. But it's super soft and super comfy. So I love, like if you are looking for a company that you want to make merch, I don't have like an affiliate or anything to sell you, like to get you signed up with them. I'm just saying if you want to sell merch, I really, really have been happy with their customer service, which is a big deal. So the quality normally is amazing, but occasionally when they print a lot of stuff, something like, I'm thinking someone put this in the bag before it was dry all the way, but my gosh, look how pretty, like the color on that, or the color, the richness, the values, it is just so, I love, love, love how this came out. So that's, yeah, quick thing with that. So I have phone cases now. I'm loving it. I've been using my other phone case I bought from them as kind of a sample one. Had bees and a honeycomb on it. I've been using that for, I want to say maybe 2 months. I don't know. I don't remember the actual time. Maybe it's a month. Maybe it's 2 months. I have dropped it so many times because I am so clumsy, and the phone has been fine. Like it's caused no, like I didn't have any chips on it. I didn't have anything. Now I am curious. I had phones made by Custom Envy. If you remember a while back, I kind of did a semi-review. I bought a couple of cases. Same thing. It was built, it looked almost the same, the way that the case was. The only negative that I found with it, I dropped my phone so many times, and I have tile floors. I don't have carpet. So, and when I drop it, it gets dropped. No problems with it. It did fade over, like after about 6 months, the color definitely faded on the ones from Custom Envy. So I'm curious to see if these do the same. So I think just from kind of rubbing off, the color was just not as saturated as it was before. Not a huge deal. Like it was still there. It was just not as bold and vivid. So I'm not sure if these are going to be the same. They look very much the same. So I'm like, did these all get printed at the same place? Because they're two different companies, but yeah, anyway, so the phone cases are available. Link is in the description. I've been very happy with how it's protected my phone. I used to always use OtterBoxes, but OtterBox definitely prefers, like, they give preferential treatment to iPhones. They've got way more colors available. With Samsung devices, they're like, you get 3 colors. Hope you like them. The end. So I don't really, that's why I haven't been using my OtterBoxes as much, but I drop it just as much with these, and mine's been fine so far. So I'm very impressed with that. Wow, the lion went for $231. Wow, you paid for like more than half of French fry. So you paid for more than a deposit. You paid for 2 deposits on French fry. Thank you to whoever won. Oh, here, I'll show you again. Whoever won. This is the lion that you're getting. Wait, it's going to be weird because the lighting in here. Anyway, oh, I'm so happy with how he came out. And thank you so much. And Future French Fry thanks you for your contribution. I think that's it. Was there? Oh, I wanted to show you really quick. Let's see which camera will show you the best. Maybe, would the palette show the best? Nope, that's that one. I don't know if this will work easy. Let me see. Actually, I think I can take it off of here. Does this work? No, that is not going to work. Maybe this one can then. Let's switch to this one, and I'll show you where I put the, let's see, no. I think this one unscrews better. Hopefully I don't make you too sick moving things around. Okay, so here is the studio. So there is Dragon's tank. We've got the boys, and then there's the reef. Okay, it looks terrible, but the reef tank is right there. It's a 13.5 gallon. Oh, the color is all washed out. It's actually like this neon green star polyps in there. So it's actually really pretty. But that is the studio. Here is the ladder I keep telling you about that the plants are hanging on, that I've got this vine. I need to move them so they're up on the ladder. But there we go. That is the end of making you sick with my camera skills. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to check out our moderator channels. Links are in the video description. Clark Fine Art and Joseph Fincham both have live streams every week. Great live streams. You want to check that out. You can chat with the same people you've been chatting with tonight in our chat. A lot of the same people over there, so tons of fun. Definitely check them out. We've got Nick Fine Art, or Nick Edgar. Occasionally will make really cool videos. He had a recent one a few months back of a digital painting where he followed one of my tutorials, but he did it on the iPad. So definitely check them out. Thank you guys so much. And so we've got a month. I have to wait. If the baby parrotlet is about a month old now, we've got about a month before we get to actually meet French Fry in person. I'll see if I can get the breeder to send photos when, you know, along the time and share with you guys if she will. Anyway, that is it. I will see you guys. Thank you so much. And I think that's it. I'm probably forgetting something. I don't know. Bye.